So good morning and good evening to everyone. We are going to start this program, which is chanting the 5 sutras. We will have translation rooms. Mostly there's not much to say, but here and there I will say a few things and they will be translated into Chinese and Vietnamese.
大家早上好，跟晚上好。待会呢有翻译呢，如果是需要翻译的，各自呢回到这个翻译室，然后当然呢没有很多的这个解释呢，不过会间中的会有一些。
Wang Chuk, go ahead and make the announcement in the main room. Oh, make the announcement in the main room so that people know where to go. Yeah. Okay. So both the translators should be in the different audio channels now. So again, very briefly, these 5 sutras that we are chanting, in Tibet they have been referred to as the 5 sutras of the king, or the 5 royal sutras. The reason why they have been called the 5 sutras of the king is because it is said that Guru Rinpoche gave this to his disciple King Trison Detsen, and advised the king that these 5 sutras are the 5 sutras that he should focus on, that he should practice on a regular basis. And so this collection has become known as the 5 royal sutras.
Thưa thì năm cái kinh điển, cái bộ kinh này thì được xem là ở Tây Tạng được xem là năm bộ kinh là bộ vương kinh đấy ạ. Cái lý do mà được xem là bộ vương kinh là bởi vì
Wang Chuk, somehow I can hear you in the main room.
Oh, I choose the button Vietnamese, but you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you in the main room.
Now I will change into Vietnamese and
Okay,
you can check
try
it.
again. Yeah. Okay, now I cannot hear you, so that's good.
Yes.
So these 5 kingly 5 sutras of the king, or 5 royal sutras, each of them are related to an aspect of the Buddha. So along those lines, the 35 Buddhas confession is the Buddha's body. Then the Sutra of the Wisdom at the Hour of Death is the Buddha's speech. The Heart Sutra is the Buddha's mind. Then the aspiration, king of aspiration prayers of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. That is the Buddha's qualities, and Vaja Vidarana Dharani is the Buddha's activities. And these 5 fairly short sutras, the longest one is the aspiration of Samantabhadra in this group of 5, but they're fairly short. So 5 of these 5 are also the condensation of 5 much larger sutras or collection of sutras. So the 35 Buddha's confession is the condensation of the Ratnakutta Sutras, which is a collection of important Mahayana sutras known as the Ratnakutta Sutras. The Wisdom at the Hour of Death Sutra is the condensation of the Mahayana Mahaparinirvana Sutra. The Heart Sutra is the condensation of the Paññāparamita Sutras, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. There's a total of 17 sutras known as the Paññāparamita Sutras. They are called the Mother and Sons. The Mother of the Perfection of Wisdom has 100,000 verses. The Heart Sutra is the condensation of all 17 Paññāparamita Sutras. Paññāparamita Sutras, the Mother, has 100,000 verses, and then there is like the 25,000 verses. Then there is the 10,000 verses, and so on and so forth. Then the King of Aspiration prayers of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, that is the condensation of the Avatamsaka Sutra, and the Vajavidarandarani is said to be the condensation of the Lankavatara Sutra. So in this way, practicing these 5 sutras is also a condensed way of practicing all these great collection of sutras. Beyond them being the embodiment of the 5 aspects of Buddha, beyond them being condensation of these 5 larger collection of sutras, each of the texts have their own kind of unique characteristics, unique functions, unique purposes. So you can also learn about each of these sutras separately as well. So I will encourage and suggest to all of you, if you have interest in learning more about these sutras, to please request teachings on these sutras from whoever your Lama is, whoever you get to meet. These days, people's Lamas are whoever they get to meet. And please request more teachings and explanations about the content of these 5 sutras. When we learn the content of these 5 sutras, and this learning is not just like reading one time or having explanation one time and that's it. So it's not like that. This learning, you can say, takes kind of lifetime effort, but you have to start somewhere. Yeah. So this learning is what will give rise to insight or understanding. So we can say this is how we slowly develop vipassana, which is special insight. Jesper, can you make an announcement of how to get to the interpretation rooms, the audio channels in Chinese?
好，请各位，假如你有需要中文翻译的，麻烦你到你的 Zoom 的下方看到有一个像地球的一个图案，下面写的英文字 interpretation room 的那个字母，然后你按进去，然后你就会看到有一个中文字的一个标志，它有个中文字的标志，你按进去，那就是中文的课室。谢谢。
So the training of insight or understanding is really important. In the end, without insight or understanding, not much use, right? But in order for insight or understanding to really arise and to enter our hearts deeply, we also need to train in shamatha, in calm abiding, in focus. So shamatha aspect of the training can be done through the practice of chanting these sutras.
Guru, there's no sound in the Chinese room. I can't ping Yao as well.
You have to tell Yao. Yeah, if if you can
What
solve
can I
that
say?
with Yao in the background.
Yes, yes, yes，有了有了。腰又没有了，腰又没有了。啊，只听到只听到一句罢了。
Some technical difficulties. Maybe because Yao is in outer space, you know, there's no sound in outer space. Looks like he's in outer space.
I'll try to change another
Yeah.
earphone. But there's no problem when I in the main room I talk.
Yeah, main room, no problem. Main room, we can hear you.
What happened? It's not the problem of the mic, but what's the problem?
Okay, hold on. Let's change, just for this moment, I'm going to change the interpretation to Jasper.
Yao testing.
No, Jasper, I'm going to change the room
Yes,
to
can
you.
hear
Then you
you.
go into the room and see if people can hear you. Okay, Jasper, you're now the interpreter for Chinese. So you go into that room and speak. And Ayao, you go into that room and see if you can hear Jasper or not. Then we can give it back to you. It could be just a glitch.
Testing. Yao, can you hear me? But I can't hear you, Yao.
Yeah. Now I couldn't. I'm in the main room or Chinese room. Yeah. I can hear you, Jasper.
Okay, so now I'm going to change it back to Yao, and then we'll see if it makes a difference. Okay, now Yao, you are the interpreter. Jasper, can you hear him?
Testing. Yes.
Testing. 听到吗？
Yes, 听到，
可以吗？
很好，可以了。
Hello.
Okay, good.
可以了。
So thank you.
很好了。
So Jasper, please monitor the.
有。
Jasper, please monitor the chat room. Frequently, people bring to our attention what is going on. Okay, and if you can help with that. Okay, so this is part of our training too. You know, the perfection of patience. If everything goes smooth, then no opportunity to train all the trainings that we need to do. So I was saying earlier that basically with regards to practicing these sutras, the practice is not just chanting. Especially those of you in Asia, you know, you think, oh, the practice is just chanting. Then also chanting in a language that you may or may not actually know. Like, for example, even chanting in Chinese, usually they're in classical Chinese. Then you may not know exactly what it's saying. Then even in Tibetan, for sure, this is classical Tibetan. Many Tibetan people who have not learned classical Tibetan also may not know exactly what it means. So we should not think when we say practice these 5 sutras, it's just chanting. What I'm suggesting is to understand that the chanting part can help us to develop shamatha. The mind becomes even. The mind becomes stable. Then the studying of the sutra can help give rise to insight, can give rise to understanding, vipassana. So like in Chinese, for example, we say this is the difference between 念经 and 看经. So for Yao, your translation there, 念经 is the chanting. Then 看经 is you are actually now learning and you're analyzing. So when those two are combined, then that is the way, Guru Rinpoche means to the king to say, you practice these 5 sutras. You have to practice both sides. Then also, for the chanting, myself, I can tell you a little bit. I grew up in Asia, in Malaysia. Growing up, of course, chanting sutras is very common. My grandmother, very devout, will have her daily practice 3 times a day. She will spend, an hour and a half chanting. Then later, when I went to school and have opportunity to join school Buddhist society, the school Buddhist society, we meet after school hours. First thing we learn is chanting. Then that time, I learned how to chant Pali. So the Theravada scriptures, I learned how to chant in Pali. Then later, when I got older, I learned how to chant in Chinese, classical Chinese. That was when I was a teenager. Of course, when I was a kid, I heard my grandmother chant. So the seeds are planted. Then later, as a teenager, I also learned how to chant in Chinese. So both chanting in Pali and chanting in Chinese. Slowly, by learning how to chant in Chinese, that is how I learned my classical Chinese. That I can read then, eventually, classical Chinese. It doesn't come quickly, but if you continue, it will unlock karmic seeds from the past. Then when I came to the United States when I was 19 to go to university, that was when I got more involved in Tibetan Buddhism. Then I started to learn how to chant in Tibetan. Then slowly chant, you know. And so now, you know, we are doing this chanting in Tibetan. So Tibetan is not my native language. So probably even the chant sounds a little bit funny to Tibetan people, but hopefully not too funny. But the most important thing when we chant is we understand that what we are training. And also to be inspired and to remember that so many generations of Buddhist practitioners in Tibet have chanted these sounds. Sound itself, you know, this sound is not more special than that sound, except for the fact that so many generations of Tibetans, when they chanted these sounds, their minds, their hearts are thinking of the Buddha's teachings. So because of that, these sounds also have the power to help change things, subtle ways. Don't think of it as some kind of like magic, you know. It's not like that, but it's interdependence, we call it. So one reason somebody asked me on Facebook, will we chant this in English? I said, no, there's a practical reason why I have no plans right now to chant this in English. Because just look at here, this group, you know. We have people who need Chinese, we have people who need Vietnamese. Probably we also have people who need Spanish. So then if I chant in English, you know, most of you will have to learn something else. So our neutral language is Tibetan. So then we all chant in Tibetan, you know, so out of this practical reason as well. Other than the reason how I said, you know, so many generations of Tibetans have chanted this, and especially those practitioners who have, you know, achieved realization. So they also use these words, they chanted this. So there is something about chanting this in Tibetan that can be helpful. So especially for people to hear, to listen. People who are sick, people who are unwell, for animals, to just play it, to just let them listen. We say seeds are planted, or the seeds that are already there are being watered. And the other thing they say is, no matter what language you hear it in, maybe right now you do not directly understand, but they say that the seeds that are planted, when we enter the intermediate state, when this life is over and we enter into the intermediate state, and before we leave the intermediate state, inside the intermediate state, the seeds that we have planted, especially the words of the Buddha, even though they in another language, in Pali, in classical Chinese, in classical Tibetan, they can become understood when we are in the bardo, in the intermediate state. Because it is said that in the intermediate state, the mind is no longer constrained in ways that it is constrained when we are still alive. So everything that has entered our mind will come back to us. At that time then, the meaning of these words, it is said, will become very clear. So that's another thing to understand.
有啊有啊，我有听到你声音。摇再试试啊，没有了，你又没有声音了。摇，你又没有声音了。
It's okay. Now we're going to start chanting. So we're going to start with the...
Wait.
Yes, please share.
Wait. Anh Vũ, anh bảo Dr. Hằng duyệt duyệt tân đi để nó share cho mình.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So now we will begin with the opening prayers. Go up.
Nam mô Tát Sư Tát Tỳ Minh Chúng Sinh Tát Sĩ Tát Sa Chí Hạnh Sở Sa Quang Minh.
Đô la thâu chế bê ra nô bờ chế bê ghê thar ba đăng tham chế ghê bê bar du cho bra chế ba tham chế ghê so chế bê ma năng kha đăng nhằm bê sen chen tham chế thế wa thang ten thung ngao thang đơ nơ đơ la na mê pa yang tham bra so bê chan chu rin po chế thô bra cho đà la thâu chế bê ra nô bờ chế bê ghê thar ba đăng tham chế ghê bê bar du cho bra chế ba tham chế ghê so chế bê ma năng kha đăng nhằm bê sen chen tham chế thế wa dan ten tu ngao dan de ne de la na me pa yang da bra so be chan ju ren po je do bra ja da la da wa je be da no bar je be ge tar ba dan tham je gen be bar du cho bra je ba tham je ge so je be ma nang ka dang nyam be sen chen tham je de wa dan ten tu ngao dan de ne de la na me pa yang Dabra zobe janju rinpo je tobra je de je du sa ma ge ge bardu lunga yizum ge wala go ma shi bardu lunga yizum ge wala go du dere ne sum de ne ma chan ta sam ge bardu lunga yizum ge wala go zon je chodan so ge jonam la chanchu bardu dane kyabzu je dage junsu ge be sonam ge rola pencher sanje drubra jo sanje chodan so ge jonam la chanchu bardu dane kyabzu je dage junsu ge be sonam ge Jola pencher sanje drubra jo sanje jodan soge jonam la chanchu bardu dane kyapsu je dage junsu gebe sonam ke Jola pencher sanje drubra jo manang kadang nampe senchen tamje dewa dang dewe gindan tempara gyurji dunga dang Dunga gi gyudang drava gyurji dunga mebe dewa dame dewa gyurji niring chadang nidang dewa tanyong la nebar gyurji manang kadang nyape senchen tamje dewa dang dewe gindan tempara gyurji dunga dang dunga gi gyudang drava gyurji Dunga mepe dewa dame dewa gyurji niring chadang nidang dewa tanyong la nepra gyurji manang kadang nyape senchen tamche dewa dang dewe gyudan tempra gyurji dunga dang dunga gi gyudan dewa gyurji dunga mepe dewa dame dewa gyurji niring chadang nidang dewa tanyong la nepra gyurji Druje jaman dele naroda mami dapo padu jidengun kadrin chunden cawe lame sha saju lama yidam jogyong la sowa debzo da ju jin ju lo. sa shi pu ju ju shi me tro tra ri la len shi nin de gen pa de san je shin tu ming te po wa ye ro gu nam da shin la ge wa shu gu sun yong so la me cho nam la chi nang sang sun de shin ni ki ju da lu long cho nang si yong she la la me jo ge ngo de tse du so cha se wa dang jo jing sha pa dang je se yi rang ku shin so wa ye ge wa chung se da ge che sa pa tam che so be chang che che Om Guru Deva Dhagini Rena Mendala Pradeja Soha. So the first text that we are going to chant is the Bodhisattva's Confession of Downfalls, which is also popularly known as the 35 Buddha's Confession Practice. This text is also called the Sutra in 3 heaps or 3 components. So the 3 heaps are the 3 components. The first one is paying homage to the 35 Buddhas. The second is confessing all the unskillful actions that we have created, particularly those actions that damage the Bodhisattva vow, damage bodhicitta. Then the third part is rejoicing and dedicating. Rejoicing in the virtues, rejoicing in the good, in all the merit, and then only with a joyful mind with regards to all the merit we have created can we properly dedicate this. So we dedicate all this merit to the attainment of Buddhahood of all mother sentient beings. So roughly, this is the content of this particular sutra. Last year, we had a group that did this practice, or maybe earlier this year, I don't remember when. We did it for like 15 days. And so we went through, we did the longer sadhana of this, and we went through part by part the meaning of this sutra. Semjen tamje taba lama la gyabsu jiwa sanje la gyabsu jiwa chola gyabsu jiwa kenden la gyabsu jiwa chum dende deshin sheba drajumba yanda bar sobe sanje shakya toba la jasa lo durje ningpo rabdu jumba la jasa lo rinjin odro la jasa lo lu wangi gyabo la jasa lo pawo de la jasa lo pa ge la jasa lo rinjen me la jasa lo rinjen da o la jasa lo tongwa donyo la jasa lo rinjen da wa la jasa lo dima me ba la jasa lo beijing la jasa lo Tsamba la jasa lo, tsambe jin la jasa lo, chula la jasa lo, chule la jasa lo, biao sang la jasa lo, jenden be la jasa lo, siji daye la jasa lo, obia la jasa lo, nyangen me be la jasa lo, Seme ki bula jase lo, medo bela jase lo, deshin sheba zambe oze nampa roba ngombara gemba la jase lo, deshin sheba beme oze nampa roba ngombara gemba la jase lo, nor bela jase lo, dembe bela jase lo, Tempe shindu yondra la jase lo, wampo togi gyalzengi gyalbo la jase lo, Shintu number nombe bela jazalo, yule shintu number gyawala jazalo, number nombe shebe bela jazalo, kune nawa gobe bela jazalo, renjen bema number nombala jazalo, deshin sheba dajumba, yandabra sobe sanje rinpoche, bema la raptu subari, wangi gyabola jazalo, dedala soba, Chochu jidengi kam tamche na denshin shepa da jumpa yanda par sobe sanje gang ji ne shi Zo de so shin shebe sanje jomden de da tamche da la gong su so da gi gewa di dang gewa toma dang tama ma chi pa ne korwa na korwe gene tamche du dikbe le gi pa da gi du tsewa dang gi ba la jise i rang wa Chodengi koram, kendengi koram, chochu kendengi ko tropada, trotu sewada, tropala jese yirangwa, tsama jeba nye legi bada, gidu sewada, gibala jese yirangwa, migewe chulegi, Lam jang dabara lam wa la zuba dan zugdu sewa dan zugba la jesu yirang wa leki drepa gangi dremne da semchen ne wa chi wa drundrung kene su chi wa idagi yudu chi wa yul da da kum du ge wa la lo ge wa la tsering po nam su ge wa wang po ma chang wa gyu wa tawa lokpa jimpara gyu wa sanje jung wa la nirpa mi gi par gyurwe le gi drepa gang la pa Deda tamche sanje chum dende yeshe su gyurpa, chendu gyurpa, pangdu gyurpa, tsema gyurpa, kepa zekpa, de dagi jengar tolo chaso, mi chabo mi de o do, mi be we do lenje gyo chojing dompar gila so, sanje chum dende deda tamche dala gong su so, Dagi kewa didang kewa toma dang tama majik pani Korwa na korwe kewa shen ta tu jin pa Tana tunjo gene su ge bala ze kam ji cham sewe gewe cawa gang la pa da Dagi su trim sumpe gewe cawa gang la pa da Dagi champara chopa la ne pe gewe cawa gang la pa da Dagi semchen yung su min par gi ge Gibe gewe cawa gang lang pa dan Dagi chanchu chok tu sem ge pe Gewe cawa gang lang pa dan Dagi lana me pe Yeshe gi gewe cawa gang lang pa de da Tamche chi tu du shin dum de dom ne lana Maji padang gong na maji padang gong me yang gong ma la me yang la mar yong su ngo we la na me pa yang dang par so be jang ju du yong su ngo war gi o jitre be de be san je chom den de nam gi yong su ngo ba da jitra ma jum be san je chom den de nam gi yong su ngor wa gyur wa da Jitar data jungwe sanje jom den den namgi yongsu ngorwa zepa deshin du dagi kyang yongsu ngorwa gi o dikpa tamje ni sosoro sha so so sha so so nam tam je la je je yi rang san je tam je la ku shin so wa dem so da gi la na me be ye she gi cho dham pa to par gyu je mi jo gya wa gang da da dar su pa dang gang da de pa da dan de shin ma gang ma jo yon de nga ba ta ye gya zo dragon la Tamo jarwagi de kyabzu newaji o. The next sutra we will chant is the Noble Mahayana Sutra called the Wisdom at the Hour of Death. So this one is the embodiment of the speech of all Buddhas. According to one explanation, within this particular sutra, there are three samadhis that are taught, that we should cultivate the three samadhis, meaning the three stability, mental stability, three meditative stability. So this is related to kind of how to train the mind in this wisdom that is taught in the sutra. The content of this wisdom here is to realize the impermanent, the empty, and the illusory nature of all phenomena, and to realize this through the power of bodhicitta. So the three samadhis, the ground samadhi is the called the Shurangama samadhi, which is the brave, the heroic progress, heroic march, like soldiers marching, right? So it's called the heroic march samadhi. So that is the ground samadhi that needs to be established. This heroic samadhi is basically talking about bodhicitta. It's heroic because no matter what obstacles come, you will not give up. Then the path samadhi is called the illusory-like samadhi. So the mind needs to train in seeing how everything that arises, they don't have essence, and therefore they cannot harm us. And then even all the temporary happiness that we experience that arises, we should not rely on them. We should not count on them because they are unreliable. They are like rainbows. And the third samadhi is the result samadhi that is called the Vajra-like samadhi. And that is when the absolute bodhicitta has been achieved. So the symbol of Vajra, indestructible, so the Buddha state has been achieved. So this is the third samadhi. So now we will chant this second sutra. Gyaga Gedu Arya Ada Gyana Nama Mahayana Sudra Po Gedu Baba Daga Yeshe She Jawa Tekpa Jimpu Do Sanje Dan Chanju Zemba Tamje La Jazelo Dike Dagi Topa Dujina Jumden De Okmin Le Gyabo Gang Zangna Shude Kora Tamje La Jodon Pa Dan Chanju Zemba Semba Chenpo Namke Ningpo Jum Den Den La Jazelo Dike Je So Do Jumden De Chanju Semba Namji Kame Sem Jitar Tawargi Chum Den Dengi Gazelba Namke Nimbo Chanju Semba Nam Jiwe Dugi Ze Daka Yeshe Gumpar Jao De La Daka Yeshe Ni Jo Tamje Ranjingi Nampara Dape Na Ngopo Mebe Dushe Rabdu Gumpar Jao Jo Tamje Chanju Ki Sem Su Du Be Na Ningje Chenpoi Du Sherab Du Gumpar Jao Jo Tamje Ranjingi Oseana Mimik Be Du Sherab Du Gumpar Jao Ngopo Tamje Mi Tak Be Na Jila Yang Mi Cha Be Du Sherab Du Gumpar Jao Semto Na Yeshe Yimpe Na Sanje Shen Du Min Sewa Du Sherab Du Gumpar Jao Jumden De Ki Siksu Che De Kazo Ba Jo Nam Cho Nam Ranjin Nam Da Be Ngobo Me Be Du She Gum Chanju Sem Da Rab Den Be Ning Je Chen Boy Du She Gum Jo Nam Ranjin O Se We Mikpa Me Be Du She Gum Obo Tam Je Mi Tak Be Chapa Me Be Du She Gum Sem Ni Ye She Jung We Gyu San Je Shen Du Ma So Je Chum Den De Ki De Ke Je Ka Tse Ba Dan Chan Chu Sem Pa Nam Ke Nim Po La So Be Kor Du Be Pa Tam Je Rab Du Ga Gu Yirang Ne Chum Den De Ki Sung Pa Lang Om Par Do Do Pa Pa Da Ka Ye She She Jawa Tek Pa Chim Po Do So So. The next sutra to chant is the very famous Heart Sutra, and this is the embodiment of the heart mind of all Buddhas. So here, according to the summary given by Mipam Rinpoche, this great Nyingma master of the last century, he wrote a kind of a brief summary or outline of each of these sutras. So this is available on the Lotsawa House website. So there he points out that for the Heart Sutra, then there are also three parts to it. And the three parts are emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. These are often the three qualities of nirvana. It's said to be emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. So the ground or the fundamental reality is to be understood as emptiness, meaning lack of inherent existence, lack of fixedness, lack of solidity. With this understanding of the fundamental nature of all things, of all phenomena, of all experiences, then the path, meaning the practice, what is the practice? The practice is called signlessness. Signlessness here means we have to practice not getting stuck in signs, in sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, in forms, in appearances. It's not saying that we ignore appearances. It's not saying that we walk around pretend that these things don't exist. If you pretend that the wall doesn't exist and you walk into a wall, it will hurt. So signlessness doesn't mean that. Signlessness means that we are not stuck, we are not trapped by all the things that temporarily appear and dissolve, come and go. We can practice signlessness. So that's the second aspect. The third, the result is called wishlessness, or sometimes translated as desirelessness. Here meaning, when we achieve the result of practicing the Heart Sutra, we achieve the state where we are no longer grasping, we are no longer chasing after anything. This wishlessness or the desirelessness is not like you have given up and you have become so like loss of energy, like sometimes we say no more energy, so no more desire. Not that kind of no more desire. This is the no more desire because you are completely free. You are completely satisfied. You are completely content. So no further wish. Because all wishes have been fulfilled. So wishlessness. The text here, so go further down. We don't need these beginning. We go straight to the come down, go back up. At the beginning of the sutra. Let's look for the beginning of the sutra. Go up. Go up. Yeah, a little bit more. Right, yeah, a little bit more. Right there, yes. Yes. Kya ka kedu. Yeah, kya ka kedu bhagavati. Okay, right there. Kya ka kedu bhagavati pragya paramita daya bho kedu chumden dema sheram ki parudu jimbe ningpo. Nige dagi toba dujina jumdende gyampo kap juago pungpori la genongi genden chenpo dan chanchu sempe genden chenpo dan tabjik du jude dese jumdende zamo nangwa she jawa jogi nam rangi Tingye sin lang yong par su so yan dese chanchu sempa chenpo papa jere se wanchu sherangi paru tu jimpa samo choba nila nampradashi Pongpo nga bo de da la ya rang shingi tong par nam par da o de ne sanje gi tu sedan den pa shari bu chanchu sempa chenpo papa chere se wanchu la di ge je me so Rigi bu gang la la sheram ki paro tu jimpa samo choba je par do pa je Jidar la paraja dige je me padan chanchu sempa chamboy papa chere se wanju gi tsedan denpa shara dati Bula dige je me so shari bu rigi bu am rigi bu mongang la shera ki paradu jimpa samo choba je par do pa de Didara namba da war ja de pung pung abo de da gyang ran shingi tong par nam par yang da par jesu da o su tong pa ni su so su le tong pa ni shen ma yin no tong pa ni le kyang su shen ma yin no de shen du sor wa dan du she dan du je dan nam par she pa nam tong pa o shari bu de da we na cho tham je tong pa ni de chen ne me pa ma ke pa ma ga pa de ma me pa de ma dan de wa me pa de wa me pa gang wa me pa o shari bu de da we na tong pa ni la su me so ra me du je na me nam pra she pa me me na wa me na me je me lu me ye me zu me ra me de me ro me le ja me jo me do me ge ka me pa ne ge ye ka me ye ge nam pa she be kam ge bar du yang me do ma re pa ze pa me pa ne ga shi ze bar ba du yang me do du nya wa dang kun jo wa dang go ba dang la me ye she me Toba me ma toba yang me do Shari bu de ta we na janju sempa nam toba me be ji shiram ki paru du chimpa la de ne ching de ten sem la dripa me be trapa me do jinji lo le shin du de ne nyang yen le de par ti har jin do du sum du nam pra shu be san je tham je kyang shiram ki paru du chimpa la de ne Lana me pa yang da para so pe chanchu tu ngom para san je so de da we na shera ki paru tu jim pe nga riba chen po nga lana me pe nga mi nyam pa dang nyam pe nga dung yao tam che rab tu shi war che pe nga mi sun pe na den par shera par ja te shera ki paru tu jim pe nga me pa Teyada om gade para sang gade bodhi soha sharibu chanchu sempa tempo Deta sheram ki barudu jimpa samola la baraja o tene chum dende Ting is in le shen de chanju senpa senpa chenpo papa chere se wanchu la leg so she jawa jine leg so reki bu de shin no reki bu de shin je jidara kyogi denpa de shin du shirab ki paro du chenpa zamola che paraja de shin shepa nam kya jesu yi rango chumden de gi dike che ka tsene tsedan denpa shari budang chanchu senpa chenpo papa chere se wanchu dang tamche dan tempe kor de dang la dang mi dang lama yin dang trisa che pe jiten yi rang de chumden de ki sungpa la ngum par to do chumden de ma shera ki paru du chin pe nimpo she jawa tekpa chen poi dog so. So the next text is the King of Aspiration Prayers of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. So this is said again, right, to be the summary of the Avatamsaka Sutra. It is said that in particular in the Avatamsaka Sutra, the 100,000 qualities of Buddhas is extensively taught in the Avatamsaka Sutra. So in the East Asia tradition, like China, Tibet, China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, the tradition says that when the Buddha first taught the Avatamsaka, which was taught before he gave the Four Noble Truths, according to the East Asian tradition, the Avatamsaka Sutra was the first thing that he taught immediately after he achieved Buddha. And when he taught the Avatamsaka, no human beings, no ordinary beings, in fact, could understand the Avatamsaka. Only bodhisattvas from the 8th bhumi and above could understand the Avatamsaka Sutra, because the Avatamsaka Sutra expresses the Buddha's attainment, the Buddha's qualities. All these qualities of the Buddhas, the 100,000 qualities of the Buddhas, they become clear, they manifest, they become actualized through the power of practice. And practice, or cultivating the path, comes from the power of aspirations. Making great vows, making great aspirations, committing ourselves to these vows, to these aspirations. And therefore, the aspiration prayers of Samantabhadra is said to be then the essence of the 100,000 Buddha qualities explained in the Avatamsaka. So Mepam Rinpoche again divides this into 3 parts. He says, first, there is all the verses that talk about the cause for accomplishing all these great vows, all these great aspirations. And specifically, these what is the cause? The cause is practicing the 7 branch puja, the puja in the 7 elements. They are the basis of supporting the vows, the aspirations. So paying homage to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas with our body, speech, and mind. Making offerings of outer, inner, secret offerings. Confessing our negative actions of body, speech, and mind. Rejoicing in the merit of all beings, both the ordinary mundane beings and the noble beings who have achieved freedom from samsara. Requesting Buddhas to turn the wheel of Dharma, to teach the Dharma. Begging the Buddhas to not leave us in samsara, but to continue to manifest in the world, to remain in the world. And the 7th is dedicating merit. So this is the cause, the basis for those vows. Second part is the nature, like the vows themselves. So that's the second part. And the third is like the benefits of these vows when they are fulfilled. So these all 3 is inside this text. Gyaga Gedu Arya Bhadracharya Pranidhana Raja Bho Gedu Papa Zambo Jobe Monlamgi Gyabo Chambe Shonu Gyuparla Jasel Jine Suda Juju Jidena Dusum Sheba Miye Senge Gundagi Malu Deda Tamjela Ludanga Yi Tangwe Chagi O Zambo Jobe Monlam Tomdagi Gyawa Tamje Yiki Ngonsumdu Shingi Dune Lurab Tubayi Gyawa Guna Rabdu Jazalo Duji Tena Dunya Sanjena Sanje Seki Una Shubhada Deda Jogi Yina Maluba tamche gyawa dagi gangwa mo deda ngaba mitse gyanzo na yangi yen la gyazo dra gunji gyawa gunji yonden rapso je dewa shepa tamche dagi do me do dhampa dhamwa dhampa da senyan namdang jukpa dujo da marme chodang dupo dhampa ye gyawa deda lane chopar je nasa dhampa namdang dricho da Chema purma rira nyampa dang kobe kepar pape jogunji Gyawa deda lani jopari ji jopa gana lama le gyacheva Leda gyawa tamche la yangmo sampo jola depe topdagi Gyawa kunla chasa jopar ji tocha shedang timu wangini Ludang adan deshin yegi gyan dikpa dagi gipa jeje pa deda tamche dagi sosorsha Chuchu gyawa kundan sanje se rangya namdan lodan mi lodan towa kunji sonang kanlaya Deda kunji jesu dayi rang kanan chuchu jiten romanan chanchu rinpa sanje macha ne gombo deda dagi tamche la kolo lana mepa korwa gu nyangen datong kanshe deda la Jowa kunla penshin dewe jir kyaba shingi dune zubaya Dagi deo mo rabja sovar je chasa wadang jojing shabada Jesu yirang kushing sowa ye gewa junse dagi jisamba Tamche dagi chanchu jir ngo debe sanje namdan juju ye Jiten da na kangsu chobar gyu kangyang majon deda rabnyurwa Samso chanchu rinpa sanje chon juju gale shinam jineba Deda gyache yongsu dambar gyo chanchu shinwan tu she gyawa dan sanje seki rabdu gang warasu Chochu semchen gang nam jineba deda thakdu neme dharwa gyo chowa gunji choki don nani Tumpa gyu chin revan tu barasho chanchu choba dani Da ju jin rowa kundu gewa dhambar gyo sera jindu jimbo gewa na Taktu dani rabdu jong warasho gyawa gunji jesu lo gyurite Sampo choba yong su so je jin su rin choba dime yong dakpa Taktu manyang kome cho barasho la ye gedan ludan no jinge Drubum da da mi ye genam da rowa gunji danam jim jizi sambar Tamche ge du dagi joten do deshin paro jinla ratsunte Chanchu semni nam yan je margyo dikpa ganan trepa gyurbada Deda malo yongsu chang warasho ledang nyomondu ki le namle Droshin chikden rowa namsu yan jidra pemo juni chapazi Nida namka toba me taraje shinki gyong dang jungnan si tambar Nyen son tungya rabdu shivarje dewa dala dowa kungoje Dowa tamche lani ben paraje chanchu joba yongsu sojeje Semchen dagi chodan tumparzu sangpo joba dani rabdunje Moong kyaba kundu chobar gyu dagi chodan sungpar gang choba Deda dani takdu dro parasho ludang anam Dang ni semki kyang choba dadang molam chik duje Dala pempar do bedro bo da sampo choba rabdu tomba nam Deda dang yang takdu teparasho Deda dagi nam yang imi yo Sanje seki korwe gombo na Unsun takdu dagi gyawa ta Maong gyaba kundu mi gyorwa Deda la yang choba gya jirigi Gyawa namki dampe chuzin jin Chanchu choba kundu nangwarje Sampo choba nampara chungwa ya Maong gyaba kundu je paraji Siba tamche du yang koro wana Sonam yeshe dangni mise nye Tadan shera tingse nampatarada Yonden kungi mise so du giru Duji tena dunye shin namte Shin tere samgi mikyab sanje na Sanje segi una subala chanchu jeba chojing tar warji de dharmalu tamche chok suya trasam kyong la dusum se ne ki sanje gyaso shin nam gyaso da kyapa gyaso chojing ram dusu sungji yen la gyaso dra ge ge gyawa kunyang yen la nam da ba dwa kunji samba jishin ya sanje sung la tak du su par ji dusun shebe gyawa tamche da kolo su na rabdu koro wa ye deda gi yang sung yang mi ze la lo yi tong ki da kyang rabdu zu ma ong kya pa tam je zung par yang ke ji ji gi da kyang zung par gi gang yang kya pa du sun ze de da ke ji cha she kini zung par je du sun she pa mi yi zeng ge gan de da ke ji ji la da ki da Takdu deda gini joyuwa girma gyube nam tara tom gizu Ganyan du sunda gishin goba dedak du chin ten du ngom par du dedar malu chok nam tamche du Gyawa da gishin nam ko la zu Ganyan ma jun jiten ro ma nam dedar rimpa sangya kolo ko nyangyen deba rabdu shita do Gompo gunji dundu dakji o kundu nirwe zunju na om nam da Kune go yi tekbe top da da kundu yonten chobe top nam da Kundu kyaba jamba da gi to Kune gewe son nam top da da Chaba me para gyube yeshe to sheram tadan tingzi Top da gi chanchu to nam yang dan dru para je Leki tomnan yaong su da je jin nyamon tonan kundu jom par je duki tonan tome rab je jin sampo chobe tomni so par je shinam kya soy nam par da je jin sem jen kya soy da ni nam par do chonam kya zo rab du don je jin Yeshe kya so rab du to par je jo ba kya so nam par da je jin Mulam kya zo yong su so par je sanje kya so rab du cho je chi kyapa kya su mi kyo je par je kangyang du sun she be kya wa ye chanchu cho be mon lam je dra na sampo cho be chanchu san je ne ne de kun dagi malu zo par je kya wa kun je se ke tu o pa Gangi mingning kundu sang she ja kepa de dan chung par je be je kewa di da tam che rab du ngo lu da nga dan yi kyang nam da je cho pa nam da shing nam do yong pa pa ngo wa zang bu kepa jen ra wa den ra da kyang de dan chung par sho Kunne ge wa sampo che be ji jempe gini mon lam che par ji ma ong kyo pa kundu mi kyo wa de yi ja wa ma lu zo par ji cho pa dani ze yo ma gyu ji yon ten nam gyan se su me par sho cho pa ze me pa la ne ne gyan de da cho pa tam che se war ji nam ke tar du gyur pa ji sam par sem che ma lu ta yan de shin de Jisam le dan nyamon da gyurba da gimon lam tayan de zangmo Gang yang cho chu shin nam taye ba rin chen gen de gyawa nam la bu la dang mi de we cho nam kya Shin ki du ne kya bar pu wa we gang ki ngo we kya po di to ne Chan chu cho ki jesu ra mo jin leng chi sam yang de ba ke ba na So nan dam pe chok du di gyuro gang ki cho Zang chu mon lam di ta pe de ni nien so Tam che pong wa gyu de ni dro po ngien bang bang ya yin Nang wa ta ye de ya ne nyur to De da ne pa ram ne ne war so Mi se yir der yang de da le baro Kundu zang po de yang jin dra wa De da ring po mi to de shing gyu Tame nga po dagi dek pa na gangi mi she wangi je pa da de yi zang po cho pa di jo na niu du malu yung su jang war gyu yi she da ni su dan tsen nam da rik dang ko do nam dan den par gyu tu dang mu te mang pu de mi tu jiden sam po kun nang cho bar gyu chan chu shin wang chun du ni de nu ru do so ne sem chen pen ju de du de chan chu san je ko lo rab du go du nan de ba je ba tham je du gang yang sam po cho be mon lam de chang wa dang ni tong tam long na yan de yin nam par min par san je gen chan chu cho la som ni ma je je jam be ba wo je dar gen ba dang kun du sam po de yan de shin de da kun ji je su da lo je re ke wa di da tham je ram du dusun shepe kya wa tam je gi ngo wa gang la chuk tu nga ba de da ki ge we tsa wa di kun kya sampo cho ju rab tu ngo wa gi da ni chi we du je gyur pa na de pa tam che da ni chi se de ngun sun nang wa ta ye de do ne de wa jin ji shi shin de rab du do de so ne ni mon lam di da kya tam je ma lu ngun du gyur wa sho de da ma lu da gi yong su kyan ji den ji si sem chen pen par ji gyā wē kīng kū sāng shīng kā wā de pē mō dāng bā shīng tu zē lē kī nāng wā tā yē gyā wē ngūn sūm tu lūng tēn bā yāng dā kī dēr tōp shū dē nī dā kī lūng tēn rāb tō nē chū bā māng pō jē wā chā gyā yī lō yī tōp kī chō chū nam sū yāng sēm chēn nam lā pēn pāng māng pō yī sāng pō chō pē mōn lāng tā bā yī gē wā chū sē dā kī chī sā bā dēni dōwe mōn lām ge wā na kē chī chī kī tam chē chō rō wā shō gāng yāng sāng pō chō bā dī ngō bē sō nān tam chē dāng bā gāng tōp dē chō wā dōng yāng chū bō chīng wā nām o bā mē bē nē rām tō bā rō shō mōn lām ge bō dī dā chō kī sō tā yē dō wā kūn lā pēn chē chīng kūn tū sāng pō kiñ pē sūng chūp dē ngīn sō nē nā mā lō tōng wā rō shō. So with this, we've completed this fourth text. Then the fifth text is the Namjum Zung, which is the Vajra Vidarana Dharani. This Dharani, so according to the Mipham Rinpoche's explanation, again, it says there are three parts. The first part is the background. The background in this text, it describes how the Buddha, at the time of teaching this text, the Buddha was, it says, dwelling, remaining in a Vajra. So, remaining in the Vajra, we should not think literally like the Buddha went into, like the ritual object Vajra. Here, remaining in Vajra means he was in the Vajra Samadhi. Earlier on, we learned what is the Vajra Samadhi? The Vajra Samadhi is the state that Buddha's, the state that the Buddha's mind is dwelling in. Is unchanging, is indestructible. So from within that state, he then empowered or blessed Vajrapani, the great bodhisattva of power, to then speak this Dharani. So it's actually Vajrapani that gave this Dharani, but through the power of the Buddha. Then the second part is the actual dharani itself. So the dharani actually has three parts, the long, the medium, and the very short. Then the third part of this text is the Buddha talking about the benefits, the uses of this dharani. But we know from the first part of this text that the mind needs to be very stable. If we recite this dharani with a distracted mind, then of course the benefits, the function of the dharani will not be so powerful, will not be so effective. So the more we are able to stable the mind, almost like stable until, if we can stabilize it until it is Buddha's kind of vajra, indestructible samadhi, then of course the full power, the full blessings of this dharani becomes possible. So let's now chant this fifth text. Gyaga gedu bajra bidarana dhamma dharani bhogedu durje nambra jomba she jawezu sanje dan chanju sempa tamje la cha se lo dige dagi toba dujina chum dende durje la shude sanje ge tu lana durje lo tamje doje jinla jinje la ne doje tinge zin la nyombar zu so dene lagna doje sanje ki du da sanje ki jinje la dan chanju sempa tamje ki jinje la ki doje trobo le jungwa doje nimpo rabdu me te mi choba mi shikpa denpa sawa tenpa tamje du topa me pa tamje du ma pampa semchen tamje trapar je pa semchen tamje surva je pa ringa tamje chopar je pa ringa tamje nombar je pa le tamje jombar je pa shengi le tamje jikbar je pa don tamje lakbar je pa don tamje chele tarva je pa jumbo tamje gubar je pa ringa gile tamje du jung pa madruba nam dubar je pa druba nam ju mi zawar je pa do tamje rabdu jim pa semchen tamje sung wa shi wa ge pa semchen tamje ring bar je pa Muparaje pe sanga ki tu chen po di sanje ki tu langna doje rabdu me so Namo rana draya ya namaschanda bajrapanaya mahayakshasena pataye te yada truta truta Trotaya trotaya sputa sputa spotaya spotaya guna guna gunapaya gunapaya sarvasatwane bodhaya bodhaya sangbodhaya sangbodhaya bharama bharama sangbharamaya sangbharamaya sarva bhuttarani kuta kuta sankutaya sankutaya savashatum gata gata sangataya sangataya sarva vidya vajra bhajra spotaya vajra bhajra kata vajra bhajra mata vajra bhajra Mata Bajra Bajra Atahasa Nila Bajasu Bajraya Swaha He Bolo Niru Bolo Grena Kulu Mele Julu Guru Kulu Vajra Bijaya Swaha kile kilaya swaha, kata kata, mata mata, rata rata, motana pramotana ya swaha, chara nichara hara hara, sara sara maraya, baja bidarana ya swaha, chinda chinda binda binda, maha kile kilaya swaha, benda benda, krodha baja kile kilaya swaha, churu churu chenda kile kilaya swaha, trasaya, baja kile kilaya swaha, hara hara baja dharaya swaha, pahara pahara bajra pabanjanaya swaha, matishtira bajra, shrutishtira bajra, pratishtira bajra, mahabajra, apratihata bajra, amoga bajra, aihe bajra, shigram vajadaraya swaha, dara dara diri diri duru duru, sarva bajra, kulama varataya swaha, noje jungpo maraya pe, namasamanta bajra nam. Sarva Penchakula Mahavartaya Mahabale Katabale Tatale Ajale Mandala Maya Ati Bajra Mahabale Vekarana Rana Ajite Jwala Jwala Titi Titi Pingale Dahadaha Tejobati Tili Tili Benda Benda Mahabale Bajra Ankusha Jwalaya Swaha Namorana Trayaya Namaschanda Bajrapanaya Mahayaksha Tsenapadaya Teyata Hara Hara Bajra Mata Mata Bajra Duna Duna Bajra Daha Daha Bajra Pacha Pacha Bajra Dhara Dhara Bajra Dharaya Dharaya Bajra Daruna Baruna Bajra Chinda Chinda Bajra Binda Binda Bajra Hom Pe Namastanda Bajra Krodaya Holo Holo Tishta Tishta Binda Binda Hana Hana Amrite Hom Pe Depa Tamje Jang Jene Dungyang Tamje Me Baraje Gyudo Chogi Tsawade Pyogun Gini Lek Baragen Semjen Mwampo Nyampada Seje Pada Nye Tsam Nyamdang Punsun So Min Gang Chakda La Nam Gyab Ki Chok Padam Sadhu Gyabudang Wada Rensa La So Tse Padam Tse Pensun Tumpa Mayinda No Dribe Ni No Pada Nya nghe nghe dan no ba dan jig ba dang ni bong ba da za dang kyu kar je tem dang mi ze dong ge nian pa da nya nghe nghe le jung wa yi mi lan dik ba dong wa yan de ni rab du chang ma yi do de dam ba nian par yi gang da yi ge sen dang shin chang me gu ki ram gen de za mo san je ju yu wa do de di ni nian je na do de de ye si ji ge so cha da ni tham je ge mi se pa ye ne nam kyan de da tham je shi wa ra da che dan so nan pe wa gyu ding pa kun le nam pa ra da Norbu yung kar duru wada rinje ma me zen den je shao dan dur je me to da chu yi se ram yang na ni ngu gi bum pa da kyang ru chang me go ki tri sing ga len da ni su sa chi ga yang na len rang kya cha ge dur je nam jun de ne ni Gya bo tak du tru gi shi do je nam par jom pa she ja we zung zung so. So with this we have completed the fifth recitation, and so all 5 sutras we have completed. And so at the end, we will do the dedication. So here in the text that Hung and his brother Wangchuk have prepared, there is the short prayer aspiration of Sukhavati. So I'm sure all of you are quite aware of the harm that has come to human beings right now in the form of this coronavirus and this COVID-19. So many human beings especially have succumbed to this virus. So we especially make dedication prayers to all those human beings that are passing from this life into the next. May they make the connection to be born in Amitabha's Pure Land. Everything in samsara, in confused existence, you know, from one perspective, negative, from another perspective, positive, or one side of the picture, positive, one side of the picture, negative. So now is negatively impacting human beings in many ways, of course. You know, many people have even not just directly from the problem of COVID, but also businesses are gone, you know, making livelihood is gone. No question about that. But don't be completely just looking at it from that side. Another side is also look at how the opportunity for us to do more practice. Look at how also for many other animals that we share this world with, because human activity is not as strong, not as busy, so less pollution we're putting into the world, then those animals, those other life forms, they get a break from our dominance. So there are many sides, you know, to every situation. If we only get stuck in one side, then a lot of suffering can arise. Buddha's teachings on impermanence, on emptiness, on lack of self, have many, is actually very profound, and hard for many of us to really understand. But for most of us, the immediate benefit we can get from teachings like impermanence and emptiness and lack of self is to be able to apply the teaching on don't get stuck, don't become so fixated, don't grasp so strongly at everything, good or bad. Move around like wind, they say, and don't get stuck. I think that is a very beneficial, practical way of applying Buddha's most profound teaching. I'm not saying, you know, the teaching of emptiness simply means this. But what I'm saying is, for most of us, what we can do to apply this teaching on emptiness, on lack of inherent existence, on impermanence, is to try to live our lives without being so stuck, without being so rigid, without being so tight. So this is how we can begin to practice these profound instructions. Musa Sanje Nama Taye Dang Yesu Jobo Tuje Jembo Dang Yondu Semba Tuje Donam La Sanje Changsen Pame Korgi Kor Degi Ngosa Bhaktu Meba Ye Dewa Chinse Shawe Shinkamte Da Shen Dine Tsebo Gyurma Ta Kewa Shenki Barma Choparo Deru Kene Nante Shautun Sho Dege Dage Monlam Tabadi Chochu Sanje Changsen Tamche Ge Geme Drupa Jinje Labdu So Deyata Benjadriya Awa Bodha Naya Soha Changju Semcho Rinpoche Magye Banam Gyegyuchi Geba Nyampa Mebaya Gone Gondu Belwar Shu. Thank you to everyone for participating, particularly our translators. So maybe next Monday we will chant again the 5 sutras. See you next Monday, or maybe before that. For some of you who are participating in the other programs, I'll see you on Zoom before next Monday. But next Monday, let's do this chant of the 5 sutras again.
Thank you so much, Lamala. Thank you so much today.
Yes,
so much,
okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, Namala.
Yeah, good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lamala.
Yeah, so chant when you have time. One day, one text. If all 5 is hard, one day, one text, you know. And study.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
就呢，就说有时间呢多练，可能就是研究一下。
Bye-bye.